Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
What's up, PGF Nation? We are back. Hope you guys had a wonderful holiday. We are going to squeeze in this episode right before New Year's for you guys. Kyle Whittingham is the new coach at Michigan. We're going to discuss it. We saw maybe the game of the year in the NFL. Eagles-Bills lived up to the billing. Incredible quarterback performances to discuss over the weekend. And we're going to preview and make picks for the college football quarterfinals games coming up this week. Got some big-time matchups, a lot to get to, of course. But I'm your host, Brad Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Alex Higdon. Alex, how was your Christmas, man?
What a game. I mean, forget Christmas. What a game we had yesterday between the 49ers and Bears.
Yeah, man. You're ready to jump into it. So am I. You're right. Unbelievable. I think, Alex, you can make a case. This might have been the game of the year in the NFL. High-level coaching on both sides. Great play calling. High-level quarterback play on both sides. These are two really good football teams. You've got playmakers all over the place. Christian McCaffrey was incredible. Luther Burden is really emerging as one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. Back and forth game, came down to the wire. 900 yards of combined offense. I loved the creative play calling I saw from this game. Just give me your thoughts on this one.
If you just look at the game, it was like, okay, well, you got the defensive score first, then the 49ers came back and scored. Then it sat there and it was like, okay, well, what is it going to be? And then it showed up to be exactly what it was going to be. It was going to be no defensive calls, and it was going to be all offense. It was back and forth. Back when they punted, when the Bears punted, the 49ers punted, and vice versa. And they went score for score until they got to the fourth quarter when they held the Bears up to a field goal and they beat them 38-42.
Yeah, Purdy had the mistake early, but man, he really bounced back. I thought he was lights out for the most part in this game. No Trent Williams, he goes out. No Brandon Ayuk, of course. No George Kittle in this game. Brock Purdy has been on fire down the stretch. I mean, he is elevating this team right now with his play. He connected on massive throws in this game, big third down conversions, just the quarterback play in general in this game, because I was really impressed with Caleb Williams as well. I mean, Caleb Williams delivered some big-time plays repeatedly in this game in some big spots. He has taken such a big step forward this year. I know we've talked about it a couple times, but it just feels like he gets better and better every week. This team feels like, even in a loss, I'm not down on the Bears at all. I thought this was a great performance from them on the road. Very good team in a big spotlight game. And I was really impressed with them. I just think what we've seen, the connection that Ben Johnson has had with Caleb and the play that we've seen from this team is incredible. Caleb Williams is showing exactly why he was so highly regarded as a prospect. I mean, this guy's talent is off the charts. We saw some throws in this game that were just unbelievable. Now, look, he still has room to improve his game. He still needs to hit some of those layups that he misses. But man, with real coaching now, we are seeing a guy who I think can become an MVP in this league. I just think he has that much talent, and we're just scraping the surface of what Caleb Williams can be in this league. And the other thing I really like what I've seen from him, he's not taking as many sacks. That was a big issue for him last year. He's taking care of the football. I know you always point that out, Alex. This is a guy who's always taking care of the ball, but now he's not taking so many negative plays with sacks. I thought the Bears' defense is, to me, that's the one kind of big question mark going into the playoffs. They're just too dependent on turnovers. And I know they get a lot of them, but this is a team that struggles to stop the run. It showed up in this game. I don't know if they're a contender yet. They're having a great season. I don't think they're in the contender mix. I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. I don't see them making a Super Bowl run, but I think this is a team, if they can add a few more pieces in the draft next year, watch out, because I do think this team is absolutely on track.
Yeah, and the real problem with the Bears has been their running game. That's what I see, even though, DeAndre Swift and Monanagi, they've both shown that they can run, but it's been in these big games. Again, Christian McCaffrey, 23 carries, 140 yards. But then you get to DeAndre Swift, 9 carries for 54 yards, and Kyle, 8 carries for 38 yards. That's really only 17 carries for about 88 yards. That's where they lacked in terms of offensively to show any type of real power there.
Yeah, I like the balance we've seen from them from the running game this year. I like the balance we've seen from this offense. I think this game, they had to get away from the run a little bit just because it turned into a shootout. And I think there was a little bit of pressure on them to keep pace with this 49ers offense, and maybe the game plan might have got away from the run a little bit. But yeah, I like Monangai. I think he's a really good young player. I think Swift is still a very capable back. I just think they're still, like I said, I still think they're a draft or two away from entering that contender mix. But, man, they're a fun team to watch, and they're a competitive team. And, they came down to the wire versus a very good 49ers team. So, not a type of game that I think you could be too disappointed if you're a Bears fan, even in a loss. Let's jump to Bills-Eagles, Alex. This was a huge game, one of the biggest matchups of the weekend, of course. Eagles survive late. Quite frankly, they were lucky that Allen missed on a wide-open wide receiver for that 2-point conversion. That's a play that he hits 9 times out of 10. The ball just drifted on him. It was a great play call. They had him on the ropes. Eagles offense, they looked good early in this game. Had some really nice throws early in this game. He was kind of in a rhythm. They were moving the ball, but once again, the offense for the Eagles just dies in the second half, and we've seen this so many times this year from Philly. The Eagles punted on 5 consecutive possessions in the second half of this game.
The main issue is just Saquon Barkley, but that's been an issue all season long, so we'll just move that to the side. I don't know where they're supposed to go and where they're supposed to look for these wins. Defensively, it was actually a very wind according game, actually a weather in terms of it was snowing. So the defense would just throw that out the window. Offensively, they need to figure something out if they're going to continue in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the offense is definitely the concern. I mean, we've seen, like I said, we've seen halves, we've seen games and some stretches where the offense has looked good. But you're right. They just can't run the ball consistently this year. I think a lot of it comes down to the O-line. The O-line just isn't as good as they were last year. And Barkley just doesn't have those big holes to run through like we saw last year. And when they can't run the ball consistently, the offense stalls out too much because it puts too much pressure on Jalen Hurts to deliver. I don't know if I can trust the offense. At this point in the year, you kind of are what you are. I don't think there's a whole lot of adjustments that you can make at this point in the year. So the offense, I think, is a real concern for them going into the playoffs. Philly's defense is still playing at a championship level. The defense has been lights out all year. It's a reason they keep winning most of these games. They showed up again big time in this game. This Eagles roster from top to bottom is just so much better than Buffalo. We've talked about it a lot this year. This team is so reliant on Josh Allen because there just isn't enough star power on this team. And once again, I don't know if I can trust the Bills in the playoffs because of it. Josh Allen's incredible. He gave them a chance to win this game. But outside of their left tackle and James Cook and obviously Josh Allen, what does this offense really have? It's just a bunch of guys. I mean, they don't have enough star power on the offensive side of the ball. The defense doesn't have a single Pro Bowl level player. The wide receiver room is weak. I mean, it just is. So it's not a team that I trust to make a deep playoff run. Both of these teams, I think, have real flaws. I think they're good teams. I think this is a fun matchup, but I think this game really exposed both of these teams having major flaws as far as being true contenders.
Yeah, with the Bills, it's Josh Allen or James Cook, and then that's it. And then, with the receivers, you just take your pick. Is it going to be Brandon Cooks this week? Is it going to be Khalil Shakur? Is it going to be Dawson Knox? Is it going to be Kincaid this year? Is it going to be Gabe Davis? We don't know. It's just you simply don't know. You just know every week I have Josh Allen and I have James Cook. That is it. On Philly's side is, let's look. Saquon Barkley has only 300-yard games this year. And even then, even if you want to go even further, he only has 2 80-yard games or more. He has 5 80-yard games or more. And then that's it. So the running game isn't there. They're confused about A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith is still doing Devonta Smith things, even though he consistently seems to be getting hurt a lot. But other than that, it's what are we doing with these two teams? I see these two teams possibly losing in the first round. And now
let's shift to Panthers, Seahawks. Kind of a sneaky good matchup here. Not a game that you would have circled at the beginning of the year, but ends up being two teams that look like they're headed for the playoffs. Obviously, we're going to find out next week if Carolina is going to get in. But Carolina, look, this is a team that I think has something that they're building on. They're putting something together here, but when you see this matchup against Seattle, Seattle just has more talent. They're the better team. They're the better roster. They have better coaching. They slowly just took control of this game. The one thing that worries me about the Seahawks in the playoffs is they turn the ball over way too much. They've given the ball away 28 times this season. That's the second most in the NFL. Sam Darnold leads the NFL with 20 giveaways. To me, that's the big question mark for Seattle, because when you get in these big playoff games, those turnovers really become highlighted versus the best teams in the NFL. And the Seattle team has struggled to run the ball consistently this year. Now, they've kind of got it going the last couple of weeks, but I have real question marks about Seattle as being a contender. I think they're a really good team. But what do you make of Seattle going into the playoffs here? Because I think they're good at a lot of things. I don't know if they're great at anything, but I think the consistency in the run game or lack of consistency, and I think the giveaways are really concerning for the Seahawks.
We just look at the running game, right? So Kenneth Walker is going to have 1,000 yards rushing, and then Zach Charbonnet is going to have probably around 750, about 750 to 800. So that's a good running back, twosome to say there. Now, Carolina, I'm not sure what I don't know what Carolina is exactly, and to say what they are now. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay lost their second game in a row after losing to Carolina. What are the Panthers in terms of their running game? I mean, Chuba Hubbard has 500 rushing yards, and Rico Dowdle has 1,000 rushing yards. But what are they exactly? I don't know what they are. Some games they show up and they show up and they show out, and some games they don't. It, to me, depends on what Carolina Panther game are you going to get that's going to show up.
Yeah, I think with Carolina, there's still a team that's building something, right? Like this isn't a roster that's ready to compete at the highest level. They've just been, and I've used this term with them a couple times this year, Alex, they're just kind of a scrappy team. They're a good team. They play hard. They're in a lot of games. They still have some real flaws on this roster. I thought Bryce Young, granted, the stats weren't great, but I actually thought he had some nice moments in this game. They just couldn't get the ball down the field. And once again, I just think in this matchup, the talent gap between these two teams was just obvious. Now, the Panthers are 5-1 after a loss this season, which that to me is generally a sign of good coaching. And you mentioned the Bucs. They're going to play the Bucs with the NFC South title on the line. So obviously that's a huge game because the Bucs, this team has completely fallen apart. I mean, what a collapse we have seen from Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has lost 4 straight, and they've also lost 7 of the past 8 games. Look, I don't trust either one of these teams. I don't think either one of these teams really, truly look like a playoff team, and I don't think either one of them, whoever gets in the playoff, I don't think either one of them can make any noise at all. But that should be a fun matchup to kind of see who wins the South. Alex, I didn't think we were going to talk about this game, and I just want to mention it because it was such an unbelievable performance. Patriots-Jets. Patriots blew out the Jets. Look, the Jets are a mess. We know that. But what was most impressive was the Patriots were out 4 offensive starters in this game. Look, I know the Jets are a train wreck, and to be honest, I'm really not sure how long Aaron Glenn lasts in New York. I don't know how much faith they have in him because this team just bad is an understatement. I mean, they've been terrible, but I want to focus on the Patriots here because I want to know, Alex, are we undervaluing the Patriots right now? Is this team being undervalued? Because I'm starting to see a very, very complete football team.
No, I mean, I think looking at them and with the drop-off of the Chiefs and of the Bills, the Patriots have now put themselves in a murky market, so to speak, right? I think they could lose this first game, be one and done, absolutely, and then, just go back into the draft and build some more. I think that this is a team that needs to build some more still through the draft.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're a year ahead of schedule, certainly. I don't even the most optimistic Patriots fans, I don't think saw this type of season from this team, let alone their quarterback. I mean, Drake Maye right now is playing at an MVP level. He was incredible in this game. And I think when I look at this Patriots team, the reason that I'm starting to really buy stock into this team is because when I look at this defense, they have playmakers at all 3 levels. Milton Williams is coming back from the injury. The coaching really stands out. This is an elite coaching job that we've seen from Mike Vrabel, McDaniels. The play calling is tremendous. I think the running back room is really good. Travion Henderson is a stud. I like this wide receiver group. Drake Maye was pulled in this game with 5 minutes and 31 seconds remaining in the third quarter. I mean, that's how big of a rout this was. He ends up finishing the game 19 of 21 for 256 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was unstoppable in this game. He gets this week's NFL game ball for me, Alex. I'm really impressed with this team. And I think, to your point, the AFC being as wide open as we've seen in a long time with guys like Mahomes, the Ravens look like a fringe playoff team if they get the win on Sunday night. The Bills, we've talked about them. We know Josh Allen's great, but that team has flaws. Denver's really good, but they've got a young quarterback too that hasn't done it in the playoffs. So I think there's a question mark about them. The Jaguars are another team, looks really good, but they're not a proven playoff performer. So with a rookie head coach, there's so many question marks in the AFC right now. Why not New England? I think there's a real question about, can New England, do they have as good a shot as anybody to make a run at the Super Bowl this year? And I'd have to say yes.
Yeah, I to be honest, to be in line with what you're saying, it's like I said, there's no Chiefs, there's no Bills. It's a murky AFC playoff. To be honest, anybody could win right now. There's no team that looks like, okay, well, they look like they could take off. No team looks like they could take off. So could win one, they could lose one. And I don't think we'd be surprised either way.
Let's talk about Ravens, Packers. Like I mentioned, Ravens are a team fighting for the playoff lives. They're going to play Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football for the AFC North title to get into the playoffs. Look, this game, not necessarily a great game, but I want to focus on something here because I want to get your thoughts on quarterback Malik Willis, because this is a guy we talked about off air. I think we clearly disagree on what we've seen from him. I think over the past 2 years, he's developed into maybe the best backup quarterback in the NFL. I think he's going to get a deal somewhere this offseason to be a starter, but you don't think so, and I want to hear why.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is, I want to give a big shout out to Derrick Henry, my player of the game right there with 36 carries, 216 and 4 TDs. But in regards to Malik Willis, I know he's looked good in this offense. I just don't see him, and I don't see him as a quarterback going to another team to become the starter. I honestly simply don't see it. Now, the Jets, they've signed their quarterback for a long period of time, even though they could get rid of him, but he signed for 3 years, but really just for 2 years so they could get rid of him, perhaps show that he's been exposed after this year. But other than that, I don't know where Malik Willis could go and actually start and be a starter for that team. I don't see the place where he could land and where he will flow into a team, right into their offense, and they run the same type of, I guess, Sean McVay style offense, or whatever you want to call the offense, where he'd be able to go in and start. And I just don't see it. I think he's going to be a backup forever.
Well, I see a guy who's 26 years old, so there's still a lot left for him to develop. But I see a guy with arm talent, mobility. I think he's clearly improved his decision-making. It looks like he's clearly developed since he's been in Green Bay. This doesn't look anything like the guy we saw in Tennessee that was so quick to give up on him. And if we go back to that draft class, Willis was easily my QB1 in that draft class. I thought he was by far the best prospect. Granted, in a weak quarterback class, for sure. And if you remember, the Steelers took Kenny Pickett in the first round. Willis ended up sliding in that draft and going to the Titans. But I thought Willis would have been the right pick there all along. Pickett was more of an NFL-ready guy at the time, but much more limited ceiling. I liked the upside of Willis. You said, where would he go? So here's the scenario I like. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm trying to acquire this guy. I think the Aaron Rodgers experiment is clearly over. And if you go back to that draft again that I was mentioning, the reports back then were that Mike Tomlin really liked Malik Willis in that draft, but the GM took Pickett and surprised a lot of people. And when you look at this upcoming draft, it's not going to be a deep quarterback draft like we thought it would be. The Steelers are going to be picking probably near 20. So I think there's a chance that they could go get Willis. He's going to be a free agent. And then to your point about the offense, because I think that's an important piece to this. If I'm the Steelers, not only do I get Willis, but I would hire Adam Stenavich to be the offensive coordinator. He's the Packers OC right now, but he doesn't call the plays. Matt LaFleur does. So that's not exactly a lateral move going from an OC job to an OC job, because this job in Pittsburgh, he would get a call to plays. So I think that would be appealing, especially with a quarterback he's familiar with. And then when you bring in a guy like that, you bring in the offensive system that he knows. Now you've got a young quarterback that can hit the ground running with the same playbook and in a system that he clearly is comfortable in. I mean, Arthur Smith has been a joke. I think they need to move off of him regardless of what happens in Pittsburgh. So I think it's time to move on. And I think Pittsburgh is kind of a sneaky team to watch here in the offseason to make that move.
Yeah, I could call them a sneaky team, but then the question comes, what if Aaron Rodgers wants to come back?
I would tell him thanks, but no thanks. Honestly, you're not going anywhere with Rodgers. I think this year kind of proved it. With Rodgers, you're still the same team that you were last year. You're a 9-10 win team, scratching to get in the playoffs, and you're going to get bounced in the first round if you make it anyway. So the team hasn't gotten any better with Rodgers. I know the quarterback play has gotten a little better, but they're not going anywhere with him. So I think it's time to really just rip the Band-Aid off, get younger at the position. They need to get younger in a lot of spots, but they especially need to start thinking about a way to get younger at quarterback, try to find a guy that they can build the future with. And I don't think they were going to have much of an option in the draft, so this might be their best option.
It'll be interesting to watch and see how it happens in the offseason. I'll say that much.
It always is, Alex. You know how much we love the draft on this podcast, and it's going to be fun to look at offseason moves and the draft, of course, once the season wraps. I can't wait to get into that. But we've still got some more games to get into. So I want to talk Texans, Chargers here. Look, Texans this week going into this game, that was the easiest bet on the board. That was a no-brainer for me to take the Texans. I just thought there was no way that the Chargers' terrible offensive line would be able to slow down this Texans pass rush, and it was obvious they couldn't. Herbert was pressured on over 40% of his dropbacks, just an absurd rate. The fact that they were even in this game is actually pretty incredible. If not for, their kicker melting down in this game, the Chargers had a real shot to win this. Especially considering they have wide receivers dropping passes, the special teams failing them. They can't run the ball. They can't protect Herbert. I just don't think the box score reflects at all how good Herbert was in this game. I think it was one of his most impressive games of the year, honestly, against this great Texans team, this great Texans defense, I should say. But the Texans turnaround since DeMeco Ryans and Stroud have got there is just incredible. One of the best young coaches in the game for sure. And this team, once again, is going to be back in the playoffs and looking like a team with enough defense. We talked about this a minute ago, Alex, in a wide open AFC. I know the offense is limited, but how far can the Texans go in the AFC? Because I think this defense is good enough to carry them.
Again, I just don't see the team with enough chutzpah to say that can go anywhere. If we get rid of the Jaden Higgins touchdown, the Chargers win this game. Because that's what won the game. It was blown coverage. Jaden Higgins was wide open down behind the safeties. He was wide open. If they miss that pass, the Chargers win this game. So I just don't see it. Is it an AFC team that I would feel comfortable going in with? I could see every single team losing one of these games. That's just the way that I see it. I just don't see a team that has taken the reign and saying, we're going to do this. The Patriots look good, but again, they've been beating the Jets and so on and so forth. But the Texans, they look like they're tough on defense, but they're easy on offense. So I'm not sure about the Texans either.
No, you're right about that. Big question mark for sure. I'm just impressed with what I've seen from this team because the offense is absolutely average. There's no doubt about it. That's the biggest question mark for this team, but that defense is elite. This might be the best defense in the entire NFL. And what's so impressive, and like I mentioned with DeMeco Ryans and this team started the year 0-3. They have won 8 straight games and are now 11-5 and still alive to potentially win this division, depending on what happens in Week 18. I'm just so impressed with this team, the leadership from this team. Like you said, a few plays here and there, and the Chargers probably win that game. But Texans, they just keep finding ways to win, and that defense is scary, scary good. Alex, we got some big-time college football playoff quarterfinals games that we're going to get to. We're going to make picks. We're going to preview each one of those games. But we had some huge news in college football because Michigan hires Kyle Whittingham to be their next head coach. I think this is an absolute home run hire on paper. I want to get your thoughts.
Well, you saw my response as we spoke about this a lot offline. I said, no, okay, that's interesting. I actually don't, I don't necessarily have a quote unquote coach that I think is going to go on and do something great with the team between Penn State and Auburn and Florida and so on and so forth. I don't have a coach like that, but I think it's a decent hire. I don't think he's going to do more, possibly pop up and be good right away. So we'll have to wait and see there. But I don't see what he's going to be able to do. I I still think Ohio State's going to be there. I think Michigan's going to pop back up. And I just don't see it. I just think they're going to be possibly a one playoff team here or there. Every other. Well, I think they'll miss it next year, but they'll be there the years after that. But I just don't see them winning the championship. I just don't see it. So they're not going to be better than, I don't know if they're going to be much better than Penn State or anybody else. We'll have to obviously wait and see what else they bring in. We know they have the number one running back coming in. There's some talk about possibly that quarterback leaving. So we'll have to wait and see there. But Michigan, I'm going to have to wait and see what he can do with Michigan outside of Ohio State to see if they're going to be able to get themselves back into the playoffs and rev themselves up to get back to another championship. We're going to have to wait and see what he can do at Michigan.
Yeah, I think from a fit standpoint, it's a great fit because this is a guy who really hangs his hat on tough, well-coached defense and a hard-nosed, physical line of scrimmage. He believes in the running game and defense, and I think that screams Michigan football. So I think from a fit standpoint, this guy is absolutely the right guy. I think his track record of consistent success that we saw at Utah and his ability to develop talent is really as good as anybody in college football. I think Whittingham now going to Michigan, he's going to have access to a lot more 4- and 5-star recruits, the type of talent he wasn't able to get consistently at Utah. You look at Utah's recruiting classes, they've been ranked in the 20 to 50 range nationally the last several years because, look, there's limitations on what you can do at Utah. And this is a guy, even with those level of recruiting, he was still able to produce a lot of NFL players. I think when a guy like this comes into Michigan and you give him top 10 ranked classes at Michigan, that they'll be able to get because of their NIL budget, because of the brand, and because of the prowess of being in the Big Ten. I think, Alex, on paper, it could be scary what he could be able to do at Michigan. And the reason I emphasize this on paper is because Brian Kelly looked like a great hire at LSU, right? That would have been a home run on paper. It clearly flamed out. Lincoln Riley was viewed as a home run hire at USC. Still kind of waiting for the results there. Hasn't lived up to what we thought it would be. So it's easy to say on paper, but I think on paper, once again, I think this is a great fit and a great hire for Michigan because I think he fits the culture and what they believe in. And I think he'll do a great job of developing talent and have access to better talent at Michigan. So I'm excited to see this offseason, what he can do, what type of staff he builds at Michigan, and kind of what this team looks like going forward. You mentioned the quarterback, Bryce Underwood, 5-star quarterback coming out, flashed some real talent this year, but, young true freshman starting. He's going to be coming into a sophomore year. If Michigan can retain him on this roster, that obviously will be huge to keep the momentum going there for the Michigan Wolverines, but very interesting hire for sure. Let's get into these college football playoff games. We got some great matchups. And look, let's start with Oregon, Texas Tech. This is going to be the early game, the Orange Bowl. Two of the most explosive offenses in the nation, two very good defenses. These are complete football teams. They're both deep with talent. Texas Tech, I think their front seven is as good as advertised. This is going to be a really fun matchup because that front seven, they're going to have to be able to disrupt Dante Moore in this passing attack if they want to win this game. Alex, I want to get your thoughts on this one.
This is probably the hardest game that I see to pick here, and it's just because are you going to go with Texas Tech or are you going to go with Oregon? I don't know. I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and go with Oregon and what I've seen and how they win up front, and to take them over Texas Tech here.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Oregon is they should be getting back several key playmakers at wide receiver. Corey Moore, some big-time players that they haven't had for several weeks should be coming back healthy. What does that give them in this passing attack? But once again, like I mentioned, that Texas Tech front seven is so good, maybe the best in the country. I just think that's the key to this game for them. They are going to have to be able to get pressure on Dante Moore in this passing game because I think if he has time to pass, if he's comfortable in the pocket, he is capable of carving up any defense. I think Oregon is going to have to be able to run the ball in this game. And I think that's going to be key to this game. Oregon's running back room is deep. It's talented. They rotate a lot of guys. I think they've got to be able to run the ball consistently to slow down the pass rush. Now, what's interesting is this is going to be a 9 a.m. West Coast time kickoff. I think that is tough for Oregon. Typically you're not playing games, you're not playing college football games at 9 a.m. typically. So that's going to be interesting, flying all the way across the country and kicking this game off so early. Is there going to be an element of rust? Are they going to come out slow? I don't know. That worries me a little bit for Oregon. I also didn't like what I saw from Oregon as far as their defense versus JMU, especially in the second half. Now, I know they had a lot of backups in. They got up early and kind of took their foot off the gas pedal. I get that. But versus a much better team like Tech, I think they might have shown some weaknesses in that defense that are a bit alarming. You're right about this, Alex. I think this is the toughest game to predict. It's the closest point spread on the board for a reason. I like Tech in this game in a low-scoring fist fight. I think that's the path for them to win this game, and I think they have the guys to do it. All right, let's go to a SEC Big Ten matchup. This should be a fun one. Alabama, Indiana. Hoosiers are a 7-point favorite in this one. Alex, I can see why, though. I like Indiana in this game. I'm just going to come out and say it right away. I don't trust Alabama in this game. I think they're too inconsistent, and I think Indiana has just been so steady this year. I like the Hoosiers in this game. What are your thoughts?
You know what? I like Alabama in this game. And the reason I like Alabama is I just think that the guys that they have on their team are ready to play this game. Whereas I think that Indiana, they've only faced Illinois, Oregon, and then Ohio State. And they surprised Ohio State by beating them. But that's because Ohio State hasn't played anybody. We'll get to them in a moment, though. But I don't think that any of these teams, I don't think they've beaten anybody that they've shown, and they beat up Penn State team by 3 points, by 3. So I think Alabama here, by looking at who they faced over the year, I think they faced more over the year, and I think that Alabama's actually going to beat them.
Yeah, that'd be a big upset right now. 7 points, that's a big spread. Vegas clearly likes Indiana a lot in this game for it to be that big of a spread. I just think Indiana, is just a more complete team. I think they win in the trenches. I think they're better in the trenches than Alabama. This is a great Indiana defense. They have great wide receivers. They have a Heisman quarterback who I think, is as good as Ty Simpson has been. He's been a little up and down. I think Mendoza is clearly the better player. I think Indiana, to your point about the schedule and the wins, I will say this about Penn State. Penn State's season came unraveled after the Oregon loss, but that team has, 10 guys that are going to go to the NFL. So that Penn State team is loaded with talent, even though their record doesn't reflect that. So I guess if there's a bad win, I don't think there's a such thing as a bad win, but that game was close because I think Penn State was playing a team that was undefeated, highly ranked, and I think they got up for that game and gave Indiana their best shot, and Indiana came away with the win. But I think Indiana has maybe the 2 best wins of any team this year in college football, at Oregon and in the Big Ten title game over Ohio State. Those are massive wins. And I just think Alabama, they're a talented team. I really like Kalen DeBoer. They're just a little too inconsistent. And the one thing that really stands out in this matchup is Alabama is just too one-dimensional on offense. They just can't run the ball. And I think Cignetti is going to expose that lack of a run game. So I like Indiana in this game. I like Indiana to cover as well. We've got an SEC rematch here. Georgia, Ole Miss. Georgia is a 7-point favorite in this game. This is interesting because obviously these teams played each other earlier in the year. Ole Miss, I think the path for them to possibly pull the upset here is they're going to have to get some explosive plays downfield early in this game and kind of get Georgia on their heels. But here's the thing. I just think Georgia has gotten better and better as the year has gone on, and I think they're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, and I think Ole Miss with the loss of the coach, and I don't know too much about the play. I'm not going to say too much about the plays, but with the loss of their coach, I think this will be the game that'll actually be a blowout to me, and I think Georgia will blow Mississippi out, but I think Mississippi has shown what they are without their coach, but I think this is the moment where they run into a monster and they're going to get blown off the field here against Georgia.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility too, Alex. I'm with you. I think this is a coaching mismatch. Like you said, especially without Kiffin, I think it catches up to him. I think Tulane is one thing. I think playing against Georgia, it's a whole nother thing. I think Georgia, having played them already this year, gives them a big advantage because I think Kirby Smart is going to be able to make the adjustments needed in this game after going back and being able to watch that tape. I just trust Georgia more in this spot. I just do. Ole Miss defense struggled against Georgia the first time they played. And I think the Georgia defense has improved since they played last. I like Georgia to win. I like Georgia to cover as well. I think that game could get ugly. Last game here, big matchup, Ohio State, Miami. Ohio State is a 10-point favorite in this game. And look, I get it. I really do. I think Ohio State should be the big favorite in this game. I cannot imagine Miami being able to move the ball consistently versus the Buckeyes, because this is the best defense in the country, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah, and not to mention Miami's fourth in the country in terms of defense. I think defensively it'll show up. I think where we're going to be talking about this at is going to be more on the offensive side of Miami and which Carson Beck do we get? Because I don't know right now. And because of that, I'm going to take Ohio State. But if you get a good Carson Beck, I think there's a chance that they could possibly beat them. But I still think Ohio State's got enough in their glove to overtake them.
Yeah, the Carson Beck that's a big question mark for me too. I think you're right. It's certainly possible. I think there is a pathway for Miami to win this game. I think Miami's defensive line has to take this game over if they have any chance to win this game. I think that's where they have the one edge in this game. Is I think the Buckeyes offensive line is good, not great. And I think that Miami front is going to have to really be nasty in this game and really get a lot of pressure on Julian Sand and really shut down the run and slow down this Ohio State offense and kind of muddy this game up, so to speak. The thing is, I just think that's really the only matchup that I can find and that I can circle and say, okay, Miami has a clear edge here. The rest of the matchups I look at, I just keep checking boxes for Ohio State. I don't think Miami matches up well versus the Buckeyes wide receivers. I don't trust Carson Beck versus this defense. I just don't. I mean, he's going to have to make plays on third down. I think this defense for Ohio State is for real. There's NFL guys at all three levels, guys that are going to be top 10 picks. It's a complex defense that confuses quarterbacks. They've got the better roster, better coaching. I don't trust Cristobal in big games. Look, I like Ohio State. I like them to win and cover. I think it gets away from Miami. I just don't think they have the firepower. All right, guys, that is going to do it for today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, PGF Nation. Have a happy new year. Be safe. Drink responsibly. Guys, we will be back for 2026, of course, with more episodes. We're going to be looking at the college football playoff, the NFL playoffs right around the corner. A lot to get to, of course. So make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. But once again, I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.